Welcome back to Stronger Minds, Stronger Men, where we explore men's mental health with honesty, depth, and heart. I'm your host, Austin, and today's episode is one I've really been looking forward to. You know, we often hear phrases like man up or real men don't cry. They're so common that most of us barely think twice when we hear them. But the truth is, these kinds of messages shape how we see ourselves and how we think we're supposed to act. They teach us that strength means silence, that toughness means hiding any hint of pain or fear. But today, we are flipping that script. We're challenging that outdated idea of masculinity. We're diving into real powerful stories of men who choose a different path, men who choose vulnerability over silence, men who decided that courage, real courage, isn't about bottling it all up. It's about facing what's inside and being honest about it. And what's incredible is that in the opening up, they didn't become weaker. They didn't lose respect. In fact, they found strength they didn't know they had. They built deeper connections. They healed wounds that had been left untouched for years. And they discovered a version of themselves that was more resilient, more grounded, and more powerful than the one they have been trying to protect. Today's episode is one about courage, not the Hollywood version of it, where the hero runs into danger without a second thought, but the real kind, the kind where you sit with your fear, you sit with your shame, you sit with the stories you're taught to bury, and you bring them into the light. Opening up isn't a weakness. It's a power move. It's a decision to stop carrying a burden alone. It's a choice to live more fully, more honest, and more connected to the people who surround you. So if you've ever felt like you're the only one struggling, or if you're ever wondered, is it time to speak up about what's going on inside? You are not alone. And this conversation is for you. So let's get into it. When we think about what it means to be a man, society has painted a pretty specific picture. From a young age, boys are taught directly and indirectly that to be respected, to be seen as strong, they have to be stoic. They have to keep their emotions locked away. Don't cry, don't show fear, don't talk about what's bothering you. Handle it, suck it up, push through it alone. This expectation isn't just casual suggestion. It's been deeply wired into our culture for generations. Whether it's in the way fathers tell their sons to man up, or in the way media portrays heroes who never flinch, never break down, never ask for help, the message is clear. If you want to be seen as a real man, you stay silent about your pain. But here's the thing. Humans aren't built for that. We are emotional creatures. We're wired for connection, for vulnerability, for expressing ourselves. And when we're forced to suppress all of that, when we bottle it up for years, sometimes decades, it doesn't just disappear. It festers. It builds pressure inside like a shaken up soda can until eventually something has to give. Emotional suppression doesn't make pain go away. It just buries it. And what happens when we keep burying it? For so many men, it leads to breakdowns, it leads to addictions, it leads to disconnection from the people they love most. And for some, tragically, it leads to the absolute worst outcome. Let's talk numbers for a second, because the numbers are real and they're heartbreaking. According to the World Health Organization, men are about 3 to 4 times more likely than women to die by suicide in most parts of the world. Think about that. Every time we tell a man to toughen up or get over it, we are feeding into a system that's literally costing lives. And when it comes to getting help, there's a stigma there too. Studies show that men are far less likely than women to seek out therapy, to open up about their struggles, or to even talk to a close friend about what they're going through. Because again, somewhere deep down, they've been taught that asking for help is weak, that vulnerability makes them less of a man. But here's where the hope comes in. And it's real hope, not just a feel-good idea. Things are starting to change. Slowly, yes, but powerfully. And it's happening because brave men have chosen to step forward and challenge the narrative. Men are starting to share their stories on podcasts, on social media, in small groups, even just one-on-one with the people they trust. Men are starting to say, hey, I struggle too. I went through depression. I had anxiety attacks. I needed help, and I'm stronger for it. This shift is saving lives. It's breaking cycles. Every man who chooses to open up, every man who decides to have a hard conversation becomes a role model for the next guy who's scared to speak. And little by little, it creates a ripple effect, a cultural shift where strength is no longer measured by how silent we can be, but by how honest we are willing to get. Being stoic isn't strength. Carrying everything alone isn't strength. True strength is about facing the full spectrum of who we are: the good, the bad, the wounded, and the healing, and choosing not to hide it anymore. If you are listening right now, maybe you're one of the men who are carried and who've carried a heavy load in silence. Maybe you've believed, even without realizing it, that you had to deal with everything on your own. I want you to hear this clearly. You don't. You're not weaker for feeling. You're not broken for struggling. You are human. And there's an incredible kind of freedom that comes from dropping the armor, from letting yourself be seen, not just as tough, but as real. This movement, this shift, it's not about abandoning strength. It's about redefining it. It's about building a kind of strength that's unshakable because it's honest, a kind of resilience that doesn't crack under pressure because it's not pretending everything is fine when it's not. And the more we speak up, the more we give other men permission to do the same. So today, I want to honor the men who have already taken that step, the ones who've gone to therapy for the first time, even though it scared them, the ones who've cried in front of their sons and taught them it's okay to feel, the ones who've said to a friend, hey, I'm not okay right now. We are the leaders. We are the builders of a new culture, one where strength and vulnerability are not enemies, but partners. And if you're just beginning this journey, if you're just now starting to wonder if it's safe to let down the walls, you're in good company. This is a movement with room for every man who's ready to live a little freer, a little lighter, a little more real. The future of men's mental health is being shaped right now by all of us. And I truly believe with everything in me that stronger minds will lead to stronger men. Not just for ourselves, but for the generations coming after us. Let's keep speaking up. Let's keep showing up. And let's keep building something better together. Quote, sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is say, I'm not okay. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But in a world that tells men from the time they were little boys to be tough, to be unshakable, to never let anyone see a crack in the armor. It's actually one of the hardest, most courageous things a man can do. Because admitting I'm not okay means going against everything you've been taught about strength. It means choosing honesty over image. It means choosing connection over isolation. And it takes a kind of guts that most people will never see from the outside. It's easy to pretend you're fine. It's easy to throw on a smile, power through the day, and hide the battles you're fighting inside. That's what so many men have been trained to do. But real bravery is about facing your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's messy, even when you're terrified of how people might react. When a man says, "I'm not okay," he's not just asking for help. He's creating space for healing. He's breaking the cycle of silence, and he's sending a message to everyone around, especially other men, that it's safe to be human. It's safe to hurt. It's safe to need. It's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of strength, and it's the first step towards real change. To dive deeper into today's topic, I want to start by sharing the story of a good friend of mine, someone who has faced real challenges when it comes to mental health and life's pressures. He went through some dark seasons, but instead of staying stuck, he made the decision to seek help. He went to therapy, did the inner work, and came out the other side stronger. Not perfect, but real. A better man, a better example of what true masculinity can look like when it's rooted in healing and self-awareness. Let's take a moment to hear his story. Then after, I'll share about my own journey and reflect on the similarities between what he went through and what I've experienced personally. At the age of 30, my wife at the time was pregnant with our first child. Growing up, my brothers and I listened to our parents, stayed out of trouble, and worked hard. My older brother was a computer programmer who helped design the software for the space shuttle. My younger brother graduated from UCLA with a finance degree and worked in mergers and acquisitions division of a major corporation. However, I owned my own business from the age of 18. We listened to our parents and did the right things. I decided to change my life course and show my unborn child the difference between right and wrong. On September 9th, 2001, I took the written test to become a police officer. 169 people took the test with me that day. I scored 98% on the test and was fast-tracked through the selection process. Keep in mind, 2 days later was one of the most horrific terrorist attacks in U.S. history, 9/11, and more than 3,000 people applied to become the officers for the same department. Ultimately, I was disqualified at the 11th hour during my medical exam for having a dislocated shoulder from playing ice hockey about 2.5 years before applying for the position. The city that I applied for had a rule that a minimum of 3 years after a major injury was required for employment. While I was in the appeal for the disqualification, I applied with a local sheriff's office. On July 8th, 2002, at about 8:30 a.m., I was offered an academy spot as a recruit. Ironically, the previously applied for agency called me the same day at 10 a.m. to offer me a position, which I declined. A week before the county hiring meeting, I was told that I would be held back for another 6 months before the start of an academy. As I had already hired a replacement general manager for my business, I was forced to take a minimum wage security guard position to allow me to study for the academy and still provide for my newly enlarged family. This was the start of the resentment between my wife and me. She was accustomed to the prestige and income that came with me being a business owner, which created additional pressures for me to succeed once I completed the academy. Through the first 10 years of my career, She never worked or contributed financially to our family. To make ends meet, I was forced to work additional overtime, spend less time with my children. We had a second child, by the way, and had to avoid special assignments as they were a pay decrease due to not having built in overtime. As time went on, I drifted apart from my children and my wife, and my relationship with my children were not very strong to begin with. On January 1st, 2011, I was injured on duty fighting with an arrestee and was moved to a light duty status. In April of 2011, after 10 years of being married, my wife told me she wanted a divorce. Shortly thereafter, she revealed she had started dating in a new relationship with someone I knew and began to alienate me from our children. As a former SRO or school resource officer, I had seen the worst things parents do to each other at the expense of their children. And she has done every one of these things to the point where there is no relationship with my children. Both children are over the age of 18 and no longer communicate in any form. I distinctly remember sitting by myself in an 800 square foot granny flat with $7 in my checking account and 10 days left until my next paycheck. My ego was shattered. My vision of a perfect life was over. I was alone, and I felt like no one would want to be with such a loser. As one might expect, my work began to suffer as well. How could I stay focused on work while my personal life was falling apart? This was the beginning of my journey into therapy and understanding what was happening to me. My father had passed away from cancer when I was 18 years old. During these formative years, I was left without a father figure to show me it was all right to show emotion. Instead, I grew up playing ice hockey, where it was instilled in us to rub some dirt on it and get back to playing. I was in an alpha male work environment where cops don't apologize or show emotions, and I had no one to share my feelings or life with. Through therapy, I also learned about cumulative trauma and the effects it has on peace officers. Like physical trauma, the brain shuts down systems to protect the body from the harmful effects. Things that used to please me were too hard to do. Situations that should bring joy made me think that something equally horrible was going to happen soon to balance the scales. Between therapy and meeting my current wife, life began to change. Work improved, self-esteem returned, and life moved on. I am unapologetically emotional now and freely share my feelings with peers. It is not a sign of weakness to open up. Those who are truly weak choose to silence their voice instead of facing reality. Unfortunately, I have had partners who decided to make a permanent choice for a temporary situation. Each time, it's like looking in a warped mirror and realizing that I had not chosen that path I took. That could have been me. Your good friend. When I first started really struggling with my mental health, it didn't fit into any of the ideas I had about what it meant to be a man. I thought being a man meant you held it together no matter what. You didn't complain, you didn't ask for help, you just powered through it. And for a long time, that precisely is what I tried to do. I wore the mask. I smiled when I needed to. I made jokes. I kept busy from the outside. Everything probably looked fine. But inside, it felt like I was carrying around this huge weight. A kind of exhaustion that didn't make sense to anyone. And honestly, it didn't even make sense to me at the time. There were nights when I couldn't sleep because my mind wouldn't stop racing, thought after thought. Days when just getting out of bed felt like dragging 1,000 pounds behind me. But still, I stayed silent. Because somewhere deep down, I believed the lie. If you admit you're struggling, you're weak, you're broken, you are not enough. Then when I did have moments of the real man, the one trying to seek help break through, I would struggle with the feeling of being alone, even though I knew I had people I could reach out for help. And then one day, something shifted. I had a friend reach out and tell me I wasn't acting like myself at work. He just checked in and asked how I was doing, and he opened the door, telling me if I wanted to talk, he was there for me. I just remember thinking, I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep carrying this alone. So I did something that felt absolutely terrifying at the time. I opened up. I spilled my guts out to him. I cried a little. I was angry. I was upset. I was happy. And for once, I felt like I was heard and things would be okay. I talked about the anxiety, the depression, and the loneliness that I had been hiding. I didn't have some fancy plan for what I was doing. I didn't know what people were going to think. Honestly, I was expecting judgment. I was expecting people to back away, to see me differently. But what actually happened blew me away. Instead of judgment, I got messages from my friends saying, wow, you're going through a lot. And I've been there myself. And wow, to be honest, I felt something, but didn't know it was that bad. Being vulnerable didn't make me weaker. It didn't cost me respect. If anything, it made my relationship stronger. Friendships that had once stayed on the surface started to go deeper. Conversations that used to be all about sports or work or whatever started to include real things about fears, about hopes, about healing. It also showed me something powerful. Vulnerability inspires vulnerability. When one person goes first, it gives permission for others to do the same. After I opened up, my friend began to tell me how he saw me as an inspiration and a reminder of things he had done wrong, or for that matter, things he needed to work on. As I told my battles with people, I found they were starting their own conversations. They were talking to their friends or reaching out for help, or just realizing that they didn't have to suffer in silence anymore and would even be there to support me in my times of need. And honestly, I think that's part of what's happening in our world right now. We are the generation that's redefining masculinity. We are saying that being a man doesn't mean being emotionless. It doesn't mean carrying silent pain like a badge of honor. It doesn't mean pushing away just to prove you are tough enough. Being a man today can and should mean being open, being real, being strong enough to admit when you're not okay, and brave enough to get the help you need. And little by little, it's working. Vulnerability is becoming more normal, more acceptable. It's no longer just athletes or celebrities talking about mental health. It's regular guys. It's me. It's you. It's anyone who decides that carrying the burden alone isn't strength. It's unnecessary. We're learning that real strength isn't in the silence. It's in the sharing. It's in the honesty. It's in the healing. That's happened when we stop pretending we're invincible and start accepting that being human is being a man. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting here sharing my story about depression and anxiety, I would have laughed or maybe panicked a little. But here I am, and here you are listening. And together, we're part of this bigger movement. Because every time one of us speaks up, every time one of us says, you know what, I'm struggling, but I'm still standing, it chips away at the idea of what masculinity is supposed to be. and it builds something stronger, something more real, something worth passing on to the next generation of boys and young men coming up behind us. So if you're out there and you're struggling, or if you're carrying that weight in silence, I just want you to know you're not weak. You're not broken. You're human, and it's okay to let people see that. It's more than okay. It's powerful. It's necessary. And maybe your story, your voice, your honesty, maybe it's exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their first steps towards healing too. We're redefining what strength looks like and the future of masculinity. It's open, it's courageous, it's connected, and it's better because of men like you and me who are willing to be real. You know, when we talk about mental health and masculinity, it's easy to fall into this trap of thinking it's either one or the other. You're either strong or you're struggling. But the truth is, these two can exist together. And the two stories we just heard prove exactly that. Let's start with the first one. At 30 years old, this man was doing what many of us dream about: starting a family, running his own business, and trying to make the right decisions. He came from a strong family surrounded by success, and yet something inside him wanted more, not just for himself, but for his child. He made the decision to pivot, to serve, to protect, to model what real strength looks like to the next generation. And from the outside, it sounds like a noble path, and it was, but it was full of sacrifice, disappointment, and eventually heartbreak. He gave up a successful business, took a major pay cut, and even had to work minimum wage jobs while chasing his dream of becoming a police officer. That decision started to crack the foundation of his marriage. And over the years, the stress, the long hours, missed moments with his kids, it all ended up. Eventually, his wife left, started a relationship with someone else, and slowly, tragically, cut him off from his children. That kind of pain is something most people wouldn't even be able to carry, let alone keep showing up for work and life. He found himself in a tiny apartment, $7 in his account, and completely broken. That was his rock bottom. But here's the part that stuck with me the most. He didn't stay there. He made the choice to get help. He went to therapy. He learned that the trauma he had buried and the pain he carried for so long, especially as a man in a profession that rewards toughness over tenderness, had finally caught up with him. And instead of honoring it or numbing it, he chose to face it. He found healing. He found love again. And now he's not afraid to feel. He's not afraid to speak. He's not afraid to cry. That's not weakness. That is courage. That's real manhood. Now let's talk about the second story, my story. For a long time, I thought being a man meant the same thing. He thought it did. Be strong, don't complain, don't ask for help, and keep going no matter what. I did exactly that until I couldn't anymore. I smiled, I cracked jokes, I kept myself busy, but inside, I was carrying a kind of weight that felt impossible to explain. Anxiety, depression, sleepless nights, and still I stayed silent. Because somewhere along the line, I believed that if I spoke up, I'd lose respect. That if I admitted I was struggling, I'd be seen as less. And then one day, a friend checked in on me. And that small act of kindness, just someone noticing I wasn't okay, opened the door for me to be honest. I let it out. I shared what I had been hiding. And instead of being rejected or judged, I was met with support. That's when I realized something powerful. Vulnerability isn't a threat to masculinity. It's the foundation of it. And from the moment on, my life started to change. My friendships deepened, my conversations became real, and I saw that being open didn't make me less of a man. It made me a better one. So, what do these stories have in common? They're different in the details, different stages of life, different careers, different circumstances, but both had a pivotal moment of pain where they could have shut down or turned away, but instead they chose to open up. Both faced the lie we're told as men that strength is silence and rejected it. Both found healing through connection, honesty, and help. And both of us are still standing today, not in spite of our struggles, but because of the work we've done to face them. If you're listening right now and you're in that middle space where you feel like you're carrying too much, but you don't know how to let it out, let this be your reminder. You're not weak for feeling. You're not broken for struggling. You are human. And just like us, you can find your way through. You don't have to wait until you hit rock bottom. You don't have to do it alone. Whether it's talking to a friend, a therapist, a pastor, or just someone you trust, take the step. Open that door. Because every time one of us opens up, it gives permission for another man to do the same. We are the generation that's redefining strength, not as stoic silence, but as honest connection, not as emotionless performance, but as raw, real humanity. That's the kind of strength the world needs more of. If you're wondering how to start opening up, how to move from silence to strength, you don't have to jump straight into the deep end. It can start small. It can start quietly. One of the simplest, most powerful first steps is journaling or even recording a voice note just for yourself. No one else has to see it. No one else has to hear it. Just you being honest with yourself. Sit down with a notebook or hit record on your phone and say what you're feeling. No filter, no judgment. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to sound tough or smart or polished. It just needs to get it out. When we put our feelings into words, even messy ones, we give ourselves permission to stop carrying all of this silently inside. That alone can start a shift, something deep within us. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. And then when you're ready, take it a step further. Reach out to one trusted person, just one. It could be a close friend, a sibling, a mentor, someone you know who will listen without trying to fix you, without judgment. And if you're not sure how to start, it can be as simply as saying, hey, I've been going through some stuff and I just need someone to listen. You don't have to have the perfect words. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just start. Because connection is one of the best antidotes to isolation. If you're ready for more community, look for a men's group or an online space where openness is encouraged. There are so many groups now, local meetups, online forums, even virtual support groups where men come together to have real conversations about what's going on beneath the surface. You'd be amazed how healing it is to sit in a room, virtual or real, with other guys who say, yeah, I've been there. To realize you're not broken, you're not weird, you're just human, and you're not alone. And let's talk about therapy for a second, because it's important. Therapy is strength, not shame. Going to therapy doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're willing to do the work. It means you're willing to face yourself with courage. It's one of the strongest moves you can make. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack for miles and finally realizing you can set it down, unpack it, and move lighter. That's what therapy can hold you do. And it's not just for when you're in crisis. It's for growing, healing, and becoming even more the man you are meant to be. I want to leave you with this. Your story doesn't have to stay in the dark. There's strength waiting on the other side of your silence. Whatever you've been holding on to, whatever weight you've been carrying, you don't have to do it alone. there's another side to this. There's hope, there's freedom, and it starts with just one small, brave step. You don't have to do it and have it all figured out today. You just have to begin. Thanks for being here today. Seriously, every time you tune in, every time you choose to lean into the conversations, you're taking a step towards something stronger, something healthier, not just for yourself, but for everyone connected to you. If these stories moved you today, or maybe they reminded you of your own story, you're not alone. You're not the only one carrying things that are hard to talk about. You're not the only one who's been told to stay quiet, to stay tough, to just push through. And you're definitely not the only one who's realized deep down that something has to change. This space, Stronger Minds, Stronger Men, is exactly that. A space for truth, a space for growth, a space for healing. It's not about pretending to have it all together. It's not about faking strength. It's about honoring the reality that real strength often shows up in quiet ways, in the willingness to be honest, in the courage to keep going when it would be easier to shut down. If today's episode sparked something inside you, if you're feeling that small pull, that whisper saying, maybe it's time to speak up, maybe it's time to reach out, I want to encourage you. Take that first step. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be as simple as opening a journal tonight and writing down what's on your heart. It could be texting a friend and saying, hey, can we talk? It could be reaching out to a counselor or just admitting to yourself for the first time, I need a little help. And if you're already started walking that path, if you've already taken steps towards healing, toward honesty, towards connection, I just want to say, keep going. Even when it's hard, even when it feels slow, even when you wonder if it's worth it. It is. You are doing work that matters. You are breaking cycles. You are building something stronger with yourself. You are stronger than you know. And strength doesn't always look like winning every battle, every day. Sometimes it looks like getting up one more time than you fall. Sometimes it looks like choosing to feel inside of going numb. Sometimes it looks like making the call, writing the message, speaking the words you've been afraid to say. That's real strength. Until next time, this is Stronger Minds, Stronger Men. Stay safe, stay open, stay strong. And remember, you're never walking this road alone.